Today's February 16th, 2011 at Moxie Studios. This interview is being directed by Shann Carr.
So John, just start us out by telling us how you got started as a DJ.
I got started as a DJ pretty much in Elyria, Ohio. It's a small city outside of Cleveland where we only had one radio station called CKLW where they would play the Motown sound. And I really liked that, especially the divas, the female vocals and all that. And got really into wanting to be a DJ at a radio station. Of course, that was near impossible in the day. So I built my own station, a pirate radio station with the two turntables and everything, and did that and played music and for the locals over a pirate radio station, which I did get busted for, and parents had me tear that down. And then I moved to San Francisco with my partner, who I'm still with, Jerry, and I went to a bar called The Rendezvous in San Francisco down on Sutter Street, where they actually had a DJ booth with the two turntables, and it was set up kind of like a radio station. In fact, it was called K-Gay, K-G-A-Y, which I thought was kind of funny. And I go, you know, I want to do that. And long story short, I went on to there was a local neighborhood bar where we used to live in right off Market Street near the Castro in San Francisco called the Mine Shaft. And that's when they were playing music with the DJ, and I don't even know who it was at the time, but people were dancing like crazy under a gazebo with lights and major sound systems, like a rock concert situation. I go, I really want to do that job. I really lucked out, right time, right place. I saw the owner the next day and I said I could do that, and that's how I got in to play DJ at the Mine Shaft.
Tell us about the beginning of the San Francisco disco scene.
The beginning of the San Francisco disco scene started around 71, 72, when many of the local, quote, gay bars were adding dance floors and DJs with simple turntables and stuff, where the gay people, gay men and women, young, would meet like a church experience every night. The bars would be packed every night, and they would come and everybody would be social and all this. Even better yet was same-sex dancing, which was totally unheard of back in that day. So that was kind of neat how the whole evolution of the gay scene in San Francisco, it really was part of the disco thing, because the media got involved. Record companies started noticing that we were making hits out of records that were never on the radio. Record store owners are coming in, what were you playing? The customers coming upstairs asking, you know, where did you get this? How do I get this? And so on. It was a very exhilarating time, especially like the Mine Shaft and the young people. There was a drug culture too. Everybody would do this thing of poppers and on the dance floor and sex and freedom. We just got out of the hippie era from the Haight-Ashbury, so it kind of moved to the next neighborhood, the Castro, and everybody was free sex and love, and oh my God, as a young gay man, it was really something else. And to be a DJ, to make the evening, I felt like kind of a rock star-y kind of thing. I would entertain the entire evening from 9 to 2 o'clock closing, and sometimes later. It was a lot of fun. The Mine Shaft, it was interesting with the gay liberation exploding. There was like really a lot of anti-gay sentiment going on. We would get bomb scares at the nightclub just about once a week. We'd clear the bar out, or the discotheque at the time, and you know, the cops would come and the fire department check it. There was nothing going on, and everybody would go back in like nothing happened.
Did you have any idea that you were at the beginning of a phenomenon and that you would be honored as being San Francisco's first pioneer named DJ with a following?
You know, I didn't really think that it would be a phenomenon and that I would become a named DJ, I guess, until later at another club called the City Discotheque, which was like a super disco with the super lights, the super sound. I was a DJ. They made a booth made out of a jukebox, and I was in it. And then the press started coming, and everything kind of exploded, you know. That's when I kind of noticed. And also when I switched from the first club, the Mine Shaft, to the City Discotheque, I did have a following of people that followed me to this nightclub, and it was pretty cool.
When was the first time somebody came up and said, "Oh my God, you're Johnny Disco"?
I gotta say, you know, the first time it really known that there was a phenomenon with the DJ being like a celebrity star was one day I was walking down Castro Street, and it was the first time I got recognized by a fan. And he came running up to me. He was really good looking, and I was just blown away because I just love your music so much. He wanted to know when I was working, what nights, where did I buy my records, stuff like that. It was just like a drug. Some of the clubs I worked at, the first major one was the Mine Shaft in the Castro, which was a unique little neighborhood bar, but could fit a couple hundred people in it. And what was so neat about it is the DJ booth. They didn't have booths back then. They had like a little room that you'd have to crawl up a ladder through the ceiling in the roof, and there'd be a little cubby hole that you'd look out to the dance floor. But boy, that was my home. I loved that. I had my little 45 RPM records mixing from side A to side B. It was quite neat. Then I moved on to that club. They don't last very long in San Francisco. They're there for a minute, and then there's the next thing. The city disco was my second job. It was kind of like the job that really kicked disco, was happening, kicked my career like crazy. It was a super disco, 3 stories tall, with a super spaceship-like lighting thing over the dance floor, rock and roll speakers everywhere. I was in a DJ booth that was shaped like a jukebox. I was in it wearing a cowboy hat and controlling this crowd. It was like a power thing. Really enjoyed that a lot, and it was good times at the city. That's when the disco, they started calling it disco, was really starting to happen. The press was coming in, always wanting to interview me, like stupid questions like, when do you listen to disco music? You mean you listen to it when you wake up in the morning? I go, yeah, I listen to it when I wake up in the morning. It's happy music. And I really got into learning how at the city, how to really do mainstream, because there would be thousands of people coming through that place. The next club after the city I worked at was my super gay bar, I call it, because the city was very commercial, downtown, straight, gay, which was okay. But I moved on to Oil Can Harry's, which had another thing a DJ loves. It's a fantastic sound system, like a rock star system. And this guy, Bruce Tronson Sound, did whatever I wanted. I was just really getting into, this is where mixing was getting, like you had a beat mix, line up the records from one song to the next, and take your crowd on an energy thing for hours. It was quite amazing. Oil Can Harry's was like the super gay bar before the super gay bars came up. Favorite records that I produced, or I would say mixed, first off, would have been Sylvester's Body Strong, Can't Stop Dancing. Anything by Sylvester was always a thrill, because he would come in and help us on the controls and explain what he was doing, and it was like, he was a pretty big star, and I was very overwhelmed, but learned a lot. And his original producer, Harvey Fuqua, who basically discovered me to get into the studio with Fantasy, also taught me how to do this, and that's where I kind of learned that I could do this too. Then Patrick Cowley. When I was working at the city, there was a young man who did the lighting at the disco. His name was Patrick Cowley. And this is just about the time when Marty Blecman, who I grew up with, was also a DJ at the city, decided to start a record label, Megatone Records. And Patrick Cowley, we found out, was a man that would play synthesizers all the time and was really into the disco music scene and wanted to make music. And Patrick Cowley played on just about every single record that I worked on that became a hit. Lisa was one of my favorite albums. It was one of the first production I did that was like a non-stop album with Moby Dick Records, a legendary music company right in the Castro. And I produced it with my friend Barry Blum. And we did it at Independent Sound with Peter Buffett Engineering, the same Peter Buffett whose father is Warren Buffett, the richest man in the world. What are the odds of that? But he was such a creative person, and really taught me a lot in the studio too. And we got a #1 hit out of this album. Lisa, Jump, Shout, and Rocket to Your Heart. And that was kind of fun. Marty Blecman, my friend Marty Blecman, boy, what a team we were. It was Blecman and Hedges Productions. We would produce records for Fantasy Records, Moby Dick Records, his own record company. He started his own record company, Megatone Records. I had a great time. Marty was a detailed person, which sometimes drove me nuts, but perfection's a good thing, and learned a lot from him. He died too young. I wish he was around now to be in this interview, because he knew all the stars. He brought Sylvester back onto the scene. Everybody asked about Sylvester. Sylvester was in between contracts with Fantasy Records and had no place to go. We ran into him at a bar. Marty and I would drink at this place called the I-Beam in the Haight-Ashbury. And here's Sylvester. We were just talking, and I was working on a record with just the tracks. Didn't even know who the singer was going to be, with Tip Warwick, and had these songs. Don't Stop, You're Moving Me. You may remember that one. Joe Carroll, my friend, a ball of talent, a genius. Joe Carroll Block, Joe Carroll Davison, Joe Lowe. She was the sound vocal arranger of almost every song I ever did, and almost every song on Fantasy Records. Unbelievable woman, friend, singer. We had a hit with a song called Last Call. I miss her so dearly. She, another person that died so young of a brain aneurysm in San Francisco. But Joe Carroll is on almost every single record that I've ever produced, and pretty much anything that came out of San Francisco, because she was a Patrick Cowley singer. Fever was our first production that I ever did with Marty Blecman and Fantasy Records on our own, where Fantasy actually signed us to a contract to produce this group out of Cleveland, Ohio. And it was a non-stop record. You know, side A and B, they actually were vinyl records back in the day, and there was 3 songs on each side, all segued together. Kind of an inside joke. We wanted to make this so DJs could go to the bathroom, because you were always stuck on there. And so we would give them 3 songs, you know, with a story and a production like you would do a movie in a record. And it became a #1 Billboard hit. And Fever got us into the door even more so, where everybody was coming after us. Once that hit Billboard #1 chart, all the producers and people wanted us to remix their songs. And that was a lot of fun, even jazz artists. BADA. BADA stands for the Bay Area Disco DJ Association. BADA was an organization where DJs would join. It was a non-profit organization. It was a place where we'd get together and discuss music and stuff. What was ideal about it was the record companies were able to drop ship like 50, 60 records, how many members we had at the time, and the DJs would review them on a sheet and send it back to them, and they would get feedback and know what was going on. It was a great thing for the record companies, because we were getting so powerful in making records, because a lot of this music never got on the radio. They were selling hundreds of thousands of records around the country through gay bars, just with record play in a discotheque. Quite amazing. In fact, I started the Bay Area Disco DJ Association, better known as BADA, with my friend John Randazzo. I was told that I may win the Best DJ Award in 1976 when I was working at the City Disco. And my boss at the time, who will remain nameless, would not allow me to go to New York City. So I didn't find this out until that I won the Best DJ until about a week later from Tom Hayden from TSR Records by telephone. But the good upside to this, winning the Best DJ thing, I was, extremely excited, obviously, Billboard magazine. And the press came running. It gave me major credibility with my co-DJs, the media, business people, and alike, to start BADA, the record pool. It was a turning point in my life, in my career. And I was the first one in San Francisco to win this. And many of my other friends won this, and it really moved their careers too. I was inspired by many people in my career. One especially was Harvey Fuqua. He was the producer originally for Sylvester. He's the one who taught me how to work the controls in the studio, along with the engineers and stuff like that. And of course, Patrick Cowley, unbelievable. He comes into the studio with these little boxes, tape boxes making echo chambers, to do all these fabulous sound effects that made him so famous even today. Pet Shop Boys even credit Patrick Cowley. Tip Warwick is another person. I did the All I Need album with him for Megatone Records. He was a guitar player, had his own studio downtown, and we produced a hit record for Sylvester with Do You Want a Funk on it and Don't Stop, You're Moving Me, stuff like that. DJ-wise, the first DJ that really turned my head around about DJ mixing was when I was in New York City one time. His name was Jim Burgess. He played in downtown Greenwich Village 12 West discotheque. Grace Jones was there that night. She came out of the floor, but that was really cool in itself. But the really neat thing was the DJ, one song went to the other, beat matched, which I didn't know what the hell that was going on at that day. But the crowd was going nuts. And it was just the energy level kept going up and up. The DJ, the tempo would go up, and he kept mixing and making it better. Definitely Jim Burgess changed the way disco DJs would play. Coming back from New York City, I was so overwhelmed with beat mixing. This is the thing, I had to tell Tronson Sound, that's when I worked at Oil Kind Harry's, that I have to have these turntables with variable speeds on them. This was the thing, the big thing to entertain people and to move people through the entire evening. And Jim Burgess, I have to say, was totally a changing thing in my career as DJ. Many other DJs then of the future would come in and hang out at my little window and watch me mixing and hearing the monitors and lining up, and it was really a changing time in the disco era. Lester Temple, my friend, mixer. It's interesting, once I got into the production, being a producer and stuff, you learn where you never can say stop. You know, so I would produce these songs, can have 24, 48 tracks of music, and trying to mix them, I could never get it the way I wanted it, because there was always something I wanted to change. I always wanted to change. Lester was a friend and DJ. We used to work together at Oil Can Harry's. We just hit it off. Lester's the type of person that you could bring in, give him those 48 tracks. He listens to them, pulls out the best of it, which a good mixer does, and puts it together as a package, and it pops out fantastic. Lester Temple, #1 mixer, I think. Bobby Vetteretti, superstar DJ from San Francisco. Best DJ, I believe, twice. Always inspired by him. He used to work at the Trocadero Transfers, like the super gay church. Talk about gay liberation. All this was happening. The Trocadero Transfer and Bobby Vetteretti just go together. He inspired me a lot of kind of the mixing. He would literally come in with reel-to-reel tape recorders of his evening of taking a song and remixing it before we beatbox what they do today. He would literally plan his show ahead of time and going till all hours of the morning, which I could never do. I was getting way past that point. I was a 2 o'clock DJ. Bobby Vetteretti, inspiration to many DJs. Steve Fabus, boy, what an inspiration. He was a different sort of DJ because he could do the all-night DJ gig. You know, people would come in after the bars would close at 2 o'clock and go to their other club, like the Probe in Los Angeles, which he played at, I'm pretty sure, and would play, keep those people going till 6, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, till the sun's up in the morning. I'm sure a few drugs helped there, but that was what we did in those days. You know, we'd stay up all night and party. It was really gay, live, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But Steve, super DJ. I miss a lot of friends that died during the AIDS epidemic. The gay liberation through the 70s was stunning. I really miss them. There was so much talent. It's even emotional. I can't even talk about just now. I really miss my friend Marty Blecman, Joe Carroll. I don't know, I've just been in the right place, right time, a lucky man. I was just lucky. Patrick Cowley. It was such a moving time in gay history. I'm just happy to be part of it. And it's still going. It just amazes me. I have friends that are DJs that were told this is just a fad. Disco's just a fad. Here they are in their 50s and 60s and still playing. I'm still playing. I'm going to be 62 next month. Pretty amazing.
Tell us an embarrassing moment with you and Marty. Something crazy, something funny that happened.
Marty Blecman, I got an embarrassing moment. record companies would come. They'd want you to play their records. Thelma Houston had this song called Don't Leave Me This Way. Everybody knows that song. Marty was trying to make it big in the DJ world. Just started his record company, and but really liked DJing. He was a musician and wanted to play and impress everybody. It turns out all these record executives are here in town. Thelma Houston's in the place. He puts on the record's playing. He gets so excited he's jumping around. He hits the ultimate that the DJs hate. Knock the needle. And brutal crowd back in those days, those dancers booing and hissing. It was so embarrassing. That was not my most embarrassing moment. Maybe a little bit. Kind of funny. I'm glad it was him and not me.
Something Joe Carroll did that was kind of public or funny?
Joe Carroll was my bud. We would always, party. We were party animals. Write songs and make music and pretty much party. It's really not true. Usually we just party. It was no business, but she was such a firecracker. That's all I got to say. I was trying to think of something embarrassing. I think we always embarrass ourselves in a bar. We'd always go drinking all the time, but just my friend. I can't think of anything embarrassing.
That's
Shann.
okay. That's okay.
I can't think of anything.
How about Sylvester and a wardrobe malfunction?
No. Sylvester, was a costume queen. I remember recording, doing a mix on, I think, the All I Need album, and it was always about clothes and diamonds and all this stuff. And he would come in one day just with a pouch of diamonds, because this is his thing. He wanted diamonds, and I thought that was pretty amazing. He spent all his money, by the way, on diamonds and clothing. I got to tell you, Sylvester, a little story. Came into a studio one day. We're mixing, I think it was You Make My Body Strong. I'm going to back up on this. This is, I got to tell you the two tons of fun story first. Fantasy Records, we were doing a mixing thing and doing overdubs. My mom's in town. She's really proud of her son, Johnny, the producer, and all this. So I take her to Fantasy Records. And she is a huge major fan of Sylvester. Well, as luck would have it, or unluck, Sylvester wasn't there that day. But we were doing overdubs with the Two Tons of Fun, who are better known as the Weather Girls. Mom's sitting there, and they're singing, I think you make my body strong, or whatever. Out of the blue, we had to pause for a second. They were big women, all right? They each, on each side of them, had these huge frickin' turkey legs, chomping on this. My mother, to this day, kept talking about them chomping on that thing and putting it down, and then really breasting, you make my body strong. And that's my 2 tons Weather Girl story. Sylvester came back home one day while we were in the studio. We were checking the artwork and running the tapes or whatever, and he said he just got out of jail. Totally shocked. And it turned out there was somebody that stole his identity. This is back in the day. Somebody stole his identity and pretended they were Sylvester in New York City and were robbing jewelry stores and all this. So Sylvester with jewelry was known for jewelry. Put 1 and 2 together, the cops did that. So they had him in jail. And just a little trivia thing. I'm sure there was a news story on that. But he finally cleared that up and everything was fun. Sylvester, what a card. I still remember Sylvester riding around in the neighborhood. I used to live in the Upper Market area in the Castro. And he was a big girl on a little moped. It was so funny. I still see this to this day. But those were our disco stars, man. Patrick Cowley, Sylvester, Joe Carroll, Barry Blum, Tip Warwick, Linda Imperial, Paul Parker, Moby Dick Records. It's just amazing, the pool of talent that came out of San Francisco during these wild, crazy, liberating days of gay pride. I think that because of disco, we gained a power because we would get grouped together and talk about politics and getting this and protest. There would be a thing where if something politically was going wrong that we didn't like, that was discriminating against gay people, we would go out of the bars into the street, out of the bars into the street. I had to do that microphone thing many times, like especially when I worked in the Castro, and that was the thing. And we did get out of the bars and into the street. And I think disco was a major part of gay liberation, getting it out to the media and showing our power.